Hello everyone, and this is my review for WWE Smackdown on July 20th, 2016, and man, they jam-packed a lot into this episode. I'm not gonna lie, they were able to get a lot into this episode for, given the 2-hour time frame. But they started off the night with AJ Styles going up against James Ellsworth. We're finally getting this match, and lo and behold, and I do actually kind of like the fact that they finally did this. They did the match, and it was just a squash match. It was just like AJ gets a flurry, hits in, and takes and wins the match against James Ellsworth. But the aspect afterwards is like AJ was like, "Okay, I'm done. I'm just gonna leave." No. And starts beating down James Ellsworth even more, even to the point that he finished it off with the spot that you usually see in the ring with the ropes, where they do the slingshot up and do kind of a hangman on the with the ropes. He did that with the railing underneath the ring. It looked really brutal. Like, that was the aspect of this beating. It looked brutal in the end. Still kind of had AJ come off as heelish, even though Ellsworth hasn't really even done anything to become a face again. But ends up getting beaten down pretty heavily by AJ Styles in the end. AJ grabs a mic right afterwards and says it's just time to move on. We're just going to 2017, not even thinking about, or it's like not making him feel like he's not even thinking about his match with Dolph Ziggler next week and everything in that sense, which does bring out Dolph Ziggler. They start having a little bit of a back and forth and everything in that sense, and they were kind of a pretty decent promo. And then again, this is where they keep throwing these not, I won't say swerves, but almost like little wild card things. And well, lo and behold, I say wild card because they end up calling next week wild card finals and everything in that sense. And the wild card ends up being Baron Corbin. Baron Corbin comes out. He cuts a promo on Dolph Ziggler and then ends up beating down Dolph Ziggler. His promo was kind of meh. It wasn't all that great, but it did the job for what it needed. He does give Dolph Ziggler the end of days, and then this does lead to a promo backstage with Daniel Bryan and Dolph Ziggler. And like I said, this is within the first 10 minutes of the show. It's crazy how much they got into this, how much they got into the first 10 minutes. And they cut a short promo basically saying, Bryan's like, trying to talk Dolph out of not having this match with Baron Corbin. Is like, no, I want this match and everything in the sense of like, okay, I'll make the match, but you got to put your title shot up for grabs to go along with it. And Dolph is like, okay, whatever, and just walks out. It's like, again, he's trying to give up something that he doesn't necessarily need to do in that sense to try to prove something later in the night. It's one of those bits of how Dolph is. It's like he puts everything up for grabs no matter what and everything. And like to try to play it off as like he needs this extra motivation to be good again in every sense of the word. Up next was Apollo Crews going up against The Miz for the Intercontinental title. Like, again, they're putting tons of title matches to go along with everything here. This was a good match. It was good, like for a short match, it was a rather good match. Miz pulls out the victory in the end by, of course, distraction from Maurice and everything in that sense. Gets thumb to eye, skull crushing finale. But Apollo Crews looked good here, and he's starting to show a little bit more emotion. That when he's out there, he's not just smiling at all times. He wasn't getting frustrated with the fact of not being able to beat The Miz, but he was showing more emotion and trying to get the win and everything in that sense. So it ended up being a good thing. And this leads to another aspect, and probably also continuing this Miz going up against Dean Ambrose, and we do see something a little bit later in the show to go along with it. Renee Young comes in to do an interview, saying it's like, what's your obsession with Dean Ambrose? And then lo and behold, and it almost felt like shoot, and you see it in Miz's face, like he enjoyed somehow delivering this line. But he basically brings up the relationship of Renee Young and Dean Ambrose, like the real life relationship side of everything is like he goes by my obsession. What about your obsession? You're the one sleeping with him in every in that aspect of everything, and she just slaps the crap out of Miz for it. So that led to something during Talking Smack, at least with her explaining everything. It'll probably lead to something else down a little bit more down the road. And like I said, Miz and Dean Ambrose weren't done yet for the night either to go along with everything. Natalya comes out and she calls out Nikki, and like she's still playing the babyface who doesn't says she didn't attack Nikki Bella or anything in that sense. Carmella immediately interrupts, and she starts talking about what Natalya had said behind Nikki's back and everything in that sense. And then she eventually just admits to everything, saying that she ends out that she was the one who ended up attacking Natalya, calling her the Queen of Hearts and everything like that. She's supposed to be wrestling royalty, but she keeps taking a backseat to everybody else. Cuts a promo on Nikki. Not a very good promo. Well, a decent promo. But he cuts a promo on Nikki, even going as far as to say that Nikki doesn't have any charisma, that her cat has more charisma than her, in that, and also even brings up, again, and they bring up real life a lot in these storylines on SmackDown a little bit this week, because you have that bit with Renee Young and The Miz, and now Natalya goes off and says, and this is why John's never gonna marry you, type of aspect to it. And it's one of those bits that they're blurring those lines, and it came off rather well. Like, most of SmackDown came off rather good, but it's really weird that they're using more real life stuff, though. The Nikki Bella and John Cena thing's more, documented than Renee Young and Dean Ambrose, but they start using real life a little bit more and everything in this sense. But after this, which was a decent promo in the end, not gonna lie, though Natalya didn't really come off as like all that good on the mic to go along with it. It didn't feel like she was fully comfortable with it, but still gets across some decent points in there. And then of course they bring the real life thing to go along with it. After that, Daniel Bryan and Alexa Bliss have a promo backstage where basically she's trying to sell the leg injury again and everything in that sense, and Bryan's like, oh, how's your leg? And she's like, oh, it hurts, and it's like, well, I just got back with the trainers and they say you're 100%. So basically calling her out as a liar in that one, and making Daniel Bryan at least feel like a competent general manager, that he checks with the trainers about the people that are supposed to be hurt, and sets up a match for the next week with her and Becky Lynch to have a women's title match, but she has to go out there and accept the match beforehand, and I'll get into that one a little bit later, because up next was Dean Ambrose and Luke Harper. First of all, I haven't really talked about this at all. The mashup that they have with the Wyatt family, where it begins with Randy Orton's first theme, like his first major theme, going into the I Hear Voices in My Head, and then going into the Wyatt family theme afterwards. That little mashup that they have, I don't know why, but it just works, and it's great. And I absolutely love seeing the aspect. It makes Orton feel more a part of the Wyatt family in some way, shape, or form. Don't know why in that sense of everything. The match itself between Ambrose and Luke Harper was okay. It wasn't anything great. Ambrose comes out with a victory. The one aspect that I like about this, though, right after the victory, it's not like they waited long. They didn't wait at all. But Orton and Wyatt immediately attack Dean Ambrose, and they start beating down Dean Ambrose and everything in that sense. And they go off to leave, and this leads Miz coming out to do a skull-crushing finale to Dean Ambrose. So more solidifying to them feuding here, them having a feud for the time being to go along with it, outside of the whole aspect of the promo from the promo from earlier in the show. This does after this though. This leads to Alexa Bliss going up against somebody called La Luchadora. Actually, in the terms of the clothing and everything in that sense, they hid the fact that it was Becky Lynch pretty well. Not gonna lie on that one. On the terms of the clothing, but you could start telling with the voice. If you started listening for the voice that was coming out, you could tell it was Becky in the end. But La Luchadora wins after using the disarmor. Even more to signify that it was Becky. And she does eventually reveal herself and everything in that sense. But overall, not bad. Not a bad segment there. And it came off as a little bit different on the aspect of Becky wanted to go out there and teach Alexa Bliss a lesson and everything in that sense. It was more than just like, oh, I'm gonna fight you type thing for these for the title rematch and everything in that sense. So it sets up a little bit more that Becky kind of has the upper hand going into next week's title match with her and Alexa Bliss, and it came off rather well again. Yeah, it did come off rather well. It was thoroughly enjoyable. Up next was Mojo Rawley going up against Kurt Hawkins. They had a backstage segment with the main star from Shooter. I don't know his name off the top of my head because I'm not watching. I haven't watched that show at all, so I don't necessarily know any of the actors inside of there. But the main guy from the Shooter show that's on the USA Network, and he was looking for Randy Orton. I actually kind of like that aspect because Orton was on there, so he's supposed to be looking for Orton, but everybody's kind of like, oh, you don't want to find Orton. Like, even on commentaries, like, yeah, you don't want to find Orton right now. He's not all there. But they also have interaction with Mojo Rawley and Kurt Hawkins backstage. This does lead to their match later in the night. The match was fine. It was okay. It wasn't anything special. This was probably the one main down point of the show because it didn't come off as like much of anything. It was just kind of a match there. And it's, I guess, to establish more Mojo Rawley having to be on his own for the time being without Zack Ryder being around or anything in that sense. So they're establishing him more as a singles guy now than anything else. This leads to one more backstage segment with James Ellsworth, where the interviewer says, like, oh, he went to a local medical facility, and then just comes right out the trainer's door. Well, so much for the local medical facility. Now, he's all bandaged up and everything, and all beaten up from what AJ Styles had done to him. So as this person's continually trying to interview him, he's almost like a zombie at that point. Carmella comes in and leads him away, kind of helps him away and everything. It's like she even goes like, oh, poor baby, and everything in that sense. So it's like, okay, they're doing this thing now with Carmella and James Ellsworth, and I guess they're going to do something together. I don't know where this is going to lead, but we'll see where it goes. And I mean, I guess it's not the worst thing, the worst bit that they've ever done, but it kind of feels strange in the terms of how James Ellsworth's character is supposed to be and how Carmella, okay, getting it again because they do odd couple stuff all the time in every sense of the word. So they can play the odd couple kind of thing here to go along with this. So this leads into the main event of the night, and it ends up being so it's Dolph Ziggler and Baron Corbin. These two put on a rather long and pretty good match that does end in double countout. But this also does lead to to a point where the countout was happening, that Baron Corbin throws Dolph Ziggler into AJ Styles, and after the countout, Ziggler hits Corbin with a super kick, and then AJ starts waylaying everybody with chairs to go along with it and taking both of them out. This leads Daniel Bryan to come out to give to cut the final promo of the night, or, well, basically announce that for next week, which they're calling the Wild Card Finals and everything, that now the WWE title match was going to be a triple threat. It was going to be AJ Styles, Dolph Ziggler, Baron Corbin. This segment came off rather good, and it leads you with somebody else being in the main event now. other than more established guys. This is like a guy who's not as established. He's going to be inside the main event going for the title and everything in that sense to go along with it with Baron Corbin. So it's kind of something a little bit fresher, a little bit newer to go along with it. So that also has an aspect of leading SmackDown to be like a really big show next week, because you have 3 title matches with the women's title match. You have a fatal 4-way elimination tag team title match with the Wyatts, the Usos, Heath Slater and Rhino, and American Alpha. And you have a WWE World Title triple threat match with AJ Styles, Dolph Ziggler, and Baron Corbin. And then they also have the return of John Cena, which also I would assume they'll probably have the Undertaker return unannounced or something in that sense to go along with it. Like, they're leading next week's SmackDown to be a very big show. It's almost like a mini pay-per-view in itself. So we'll see how that show comes off in the end. This show overall came off pretty good this week. You have continuations of the feuds and decent continuations of the feuds, and a few other things kind of set up in the end. You didn't really have too many down points on the show itself. So with that being said, that is my review this week for WWE Smackdown. I thank you guys for watching, and I hope you have a great day.